LemonNation live from Paris, France. As I am joined here by Fanatics, Soaz, very nice to be talking to you here today. A standing ovation. I'll let you talk to them in a minute. But first, of course, I want to ask you about the first day of the Invitational yesterday, as it was a rough start from Fnatic. What were kind of the reflections on your own game and your own picks yesterday?
I feel like we had enough game against OMG yesterday. Our picks wasn't that great, even though we played early fine. As soon as we got behind, we couldn't come back because our setup was kind of bad. And we had the poke setup and we couldn't come back with it. And against Cloud9, I think our game was fine, even though we did like one big mistake on bottom. I think they agreed for the blue buff and I TP and I died with them. And afterwards, when I was split pushing bottom and we just throw it as well. But against Cloud9, I think we could have win it, but we just played a bit bad.
Yeah, Yellowstar was also mentioning we just weren't confident. That's something we usually are. Is that something that you've noticed in your own play as well? Does it have something to do with playing on this stage or in front of this crowd?
Not really. I just think that we are used to play some engaged champion, and Yellow played 2 times Karma, and I just felt like we didn't have any engage in the setup we played as well. So I don't know. I just think we have to play the same as we played against Cloud9, but without doing the same mistakes in the end.
Yeah, you guys are obviously not out of this one yet. Still 2 games to come today, 1 versus SKT and 1 versus TPA. What did you guys talk about? How did you try and motivate each other again to give it your all again today?
We just say that what I just said before, like we have to play the same game as we did against Cloud9, and without the stupid mistakes that we did. And I think we will be fine. Pick the setup that we used to play and play more aggressive, I think.
Play more aggressive. Of course, a lot of fans here for you, and I'm going to let you talk to them. Je te laisserai pas partir sans avoir dit quelques mots en français.
Mais, merci à tout le monde de nous suivre. Merci à tout le monde de nous suivre et continuez comme ça.
A big thanks to all the fans out of here for supporting and following him. Well, good luck in your matchups later today, Soaz, and we're going to head back to the guys at the desk.
Thank you very much, guys. It's fantastic to hear the crowd getting behind the local talent. It is time to head into our second group stage match of the day as Cloud9 face the Taipei Assassins. Now let's talk about Cloud9. They have already defeated Taipei Assassins in convincing fashion all the way back at the Intel Extreme Masters World Championships in Katowice. Both of these teams, however, lost to SKT yesterday, but TPA looked significantly better in their match than Cloud9 did. Cloud9 also did take down Fnatic by exploiting their mistakes. I still feel that had Fnatic not made the mistakes, Cloud9 may not have won that matchup. So how does Cloud9 become more proactive in creating opportunities? Also, we know Taipei Assassins makes mistakes, so can Cloud9 punish TPA the way they do Fnatic? Let's start with Crepo.
Well, both teams played a lot of champions at the same time. I mean, Cloud9 literally landed the same composition twice, so scouting-wise, TPA knows what to expect. I mean, they're probably not going to leave the same stuff open because they both junglers share the Elise pick that I think they both played in every game so far. So, well, we're going to see a new jungler come out for one of the teams at least.
Yeah, I also feel Meteos made a few uncharacteristic mistakes yesterday. Caught a
yeah,
little bit
one tower is a little overreaching in one tower shot. It was a very small mistake that actually led to a kill, but yeah, usually he's so solid and he doesn't make those mistakes.
The thing for Cloud9, however, they don't necessarily need to go out and make the big plays, make the big calls, because they don't have the normal shot caller. That's why against Fnatic we saw them rely a little bit more about what did Fnatic do. Could we then punish them? They can do the same thing to TPA. You said it yourself. They make mistakes. Cloud9 can pick something where they can punish mistakes and try and win the game this way, or they can try and trust in Link and his shot calling because he is a very good shot caller.
Yeah, that's the thing. We can talk about, Fnatic had a slight edge in the early game of the game that Cloud9 played against them, but the reason why I selected Cloud9 in the first place was I was very confident that Cloud9 would be able to capitalize on mistakes better and would be able to turn it into a snowball and a win, which is exactly what we saw. And I think that Cloud9 has every opportunity to do that again, even if they fall behind in the early game.
Let's move over a little bit to the Taipei Assassins. I felt they demonstrated an ability to contain FLICKR early on. There was a concerted focus from Wins, ganking him in that mid lane with that Elise. It didn't matter though, because once FLICKR did hit 6 on that Twisted Fate, he was moving around the map with the Destiny, using it to great effect. I want to throw this one to Freak to get your take on TPA, Cloud9, and how the matchup might play.
So Taipei Assassins to me looks the most out of their element right now. Like, I'm going to say it over and over again, but like Achie's normally incredibly good in the GPL. And it's not just because he's facing better players like Going, but he's like actively making mistakes. Jay also, their support was like missing solar flares. And these aren't ones that you're dodging that like Faker's just juking all those skull shots. It's just like he's just actively missing abilities or like mistiming it on like a TF Destiny. Like you literally just count in your head and land the ability. So if TPA gets unshaken, they'll look a heck of a lot better. Maybe they can win it, but right now they're looking so frazzled. They're not playing kind of the right game.
All right, well, it does look like we're moving ourselves towards the predictions at this point in time. It is the moment of truth for everybody on the table. I officially gave up apple pie yesterday and am on a diet, but I want to know where your allegiances lie. Deficio, where is it?
I'll go with the apple pie. I think Cloud9 can punish TPA and their mistakes and therefore also win the game.
It's going to go straight to your hips.
I got to go with apple pie as well. Cloud9 for me, I really think that they can just play the same kind of game they had against Fnatic, and they haven't really showed their hand yet. Same composition 2 times. It's kind of a mystery what else they've got.
I think Cloud9 is going to knock the wins out of TPA. Cloud9 is going to win this game.
Wow. I don't think we're a positive influence on each other.
No, Crepper, you're getting worse at it too. You should learn. But Cloud9 for me as well. Actually, I think they're more consistent. They're better down the line, and I think they've got this one.
So the host disagrees with the analysts. Let's see how this plays out. You guys at home, of course, have been voting at lolesports.com, and 74% of you guys are saying Cloud9 are going to take the win. So once again, I'm the only one bucking the trend. Thank you very much for the insight, guys. Let's throw it over to Joe and Jat at the caster desk.
Thank you very much, Quick Shot on the guys. Cloud9 last faced the Taipei Assassins, of course, at the Intel Extreme Masters World Championships, catching them off guard and notching up a win. So TPA is coming in here, looking for revenge and hoping to shut down Meteos in the jungle.
我非常期待，因为我们上次在 IEM 的时候，我们输给了他们，希望这次我们有这个机会，可以让我们复仇成功。
Against TPA, I think we caught them off guard a lot last time. We came out really strong and we were able to beat them very dominantly. I don't think they'll let that happen again.
我之前有看过比赛，我觉得他们的中路跟jungle是比较偏他们的核心，尤其是jungle。我觉得他jungle他不管是各种就是带风扇能力跟后期会战处理，我觉得细节还有处理很好。我觉得比较在意的是jungle，可我觉得只要能压制住他的成长，应该会不难赢他们。
Very clear game plan there for TPA. Focus Meteos, keep him out of the game, and win it.
Yeah, first things first, you got to get rid of his Elise, because that's the way to take him out of his comfort zone right off the bat.
So I'm still not sure why that's not been banned. We'll see if that gets changed this time around. He's played so many games in a row now with Elise. We'll figure that out in a little while. First of all, though, we're going to check out the starting lineups on the blue side. It's Cloud9 with Balls in the top lane, Meteos in the jungle, Link, their substitute here in the mid lane, and the duo of Sneaky and LemonNation.
And on the red side, it is the Taipei Assassins with Achie in the top lane, Wins in the jungle, Morning in mid lane, Bebe at AD carry, and Jay on support.
Well, right now, Morning and Link will get some scrutiny here because we're going to take a look at the mid lane matchup.
Yeah, and this mid lane matchup is important because the success and the failure of the teams is heavily tied to it. I mean, I look at TPA, and we've seen Morning get bullied in lane 2 games in a row. He had a suspect champion pool coming in. We saw this.
Yeah.
Thinking, man, if he doesn't get Lulu or Ziggs, he's done for. But he got Lulu both games, and he's still done poorly. So this is really his time on the world stage to step up and see if they can pick up some wins at this event. Meanwhile, you look at Link. He has had the Herculean task of trying to step in and replace Hai, who is a Keystone member. And honestly, I think he's done a pretty good job.
Yeah.
His game against Fnatic, he did have the team go around at the right times. His calling was on point. And he's never really been one to dominate the lane on his own. this would be his opportunity to try and take advantage of Morning's struggles. And if he does that, they don't have to worry about all the shot calling stuff because they could just win the lanes.
Very interested to see what happens here in the bans and picks, which are coming up in just a couple of moments. So let's focus on them. Elise is my immediate focus in this one. Meteos,
I think so.
Played it through the entire playoffs, and he's had it in the 2 games here as well. At some point, you have to think about at least taking such a key member, especially since they've got Lincoln not high in that mid lane, thinking about taking it away from him, putting him maybe onto a different champion where he's not as at home.
I think TPA is going to have one of their main focus points maybe on that jungle Elise, and I really have to wonder whether Cloud9 focuses heavily on Morning or whether they just let him play Lulu and go at him from there, since he hasn't been a force one way or the other.
Well, let's see, shall we? We're into bans and picks. The first one out of the gate here for Cloud9 will be Jax. Aim straight in there at the top lane. And an interesting choice there right from the very get-go. What are TPA going to go with? Will that Elise be taken away here? Possibly, but not this round. It's Lulu, which Link has played in both games so far. We should also mention that Cloud9 have run the exact same lineup 2 games in a row. I think that also increases the priority of Ziggs even more so. Link is a guy who played a fair amount of Ziggs for CLG, even though Cloud9's not a team to play Ziggs normally. The Twitch ban makes a lot of sense, obviously, and we have to point out, since we were just talking about Elise, even though Wins plays a lot of mechanically difficult junglers like Lee Sin, he has 1 game on Elise in the entire season he played in the GPL, and it was a defeat. Yeah, not exactly the ideal scenario. Cloud9 is the ones who banned it. Yeah, exactly. All right, we're done here. If we think back, he's played Elise both games in this tournament so far as well, so a ban that maybe suits both teams, or that both teams will have wanted. The final ban in the end for TPA will actually be Kha'Zix here, so keeping the focus on the jungle with Meteos. I wonder if they first pick Ziggs, because I feel like TPA would take it on the return. This is really a question about whether Cloud9 wants to fully go against what TPA has in their picks, or just pick for themselves, and it looks like Cloud9's picking for themselves. Picking for themselves and taking the jungler first of all. Lee Sin here for Meteos, who, as we said, there's no Elise this game, there's no Kha'Zix this game. Lee Sin is going to be his fallback champion. For TPA now, what do they go with? We see a few switches around. Morgana, let's touch on that, even though it's not locked in here, because that is another big one. LemonNation has, of course, played a hell of a lot of Morgana. Yeah, he played it and lost with it, I believe, yesterday, which was the first time he's lost to Morgana in 13 attempts, if we count playoffs, regular season, and this. So those are some really nice picks early by TPA. So that will be locked in. And LeBlanc is taken as well, so blind pick in the mid lane. What do we think to that? I feel like this is Morning's chance to make a statement. He has stuck to Lulu this whole time. He played 1 LeBlanc game in the GPL, and it was a defeat. It's a highly mechanically complex champion who needs to win the lane to do stuff. And if he gets lane bullied on LeBlanc, he would be even more than useless. It's a statement by him to pick it this early. Yeah, played that in the Taipei Snipers Game 1 in the semi-finals over in GPL, where didn't really go to plan. 4-5-6 was his score, and that Cloud9 here locking in, and, well, I'm wrong talking about Lee Sin, of course. Evelyn now is locked in here for Meteos in the jungle, which means we're going to be seeing a Lee Sin in the top lane for Balls. Yeah, it's got to be. How about that? So Balls, even though he sticks to the normal champions up top most of the time, is known for having really good mechanics. And a lot of the North American mid laners actually on the lower tier teams were the ones that were playing Lee Sin a lot and giving the top teams a lot of trouble with it. So that's actually kind of why we saw Dyrus playing it in the finals. He spent a large amount of time trying to pick it up. There is a lot of lane pressure value that he offers. Cloud9's going to try and use it to their own benefit. I should have learned probably by now not to always just assume when you see those picks coming in. I mean, second half of the season, not much Lee Sin played anyway by Meteos. He played it a few times in the start of the NALCS. But let's move on from that. Lucian taken here for Sneaky. Obviously, he's been going for Twitch so far here at All-Stars, but that has been taken away. And we go straight to the other side of the game, because Nocturne locked in here, 4 wins in the jungle, and we're going to see Bebe taking the Jinx. Nocturne was a big deal in the GPL. It's much more pick prominence over there. But I specifically want to talk about the Jinx because it's more relevant to what happened yesterday. After we saw Sun go off on Jinx in a very nice protective composition where the enemy team didn't have much dive, Taipei Assassins picked a Jinx into a very dangerous composition with many people who can close onto Bebe.
That's exactly what they did. He died many times in that game. He did not have good protection on Jinx. And it's really Bebe, I feel like, picking a champion that he can maybe carry the game with if he gets going, but not necessarily the right situation for it.
And he's a player who has, when he's got going, pulled off some ridiculous numbers overall. These Draven games earlier on in the GPL playoffs where he'd racked up 16 kills in one game, 19 in another. Obviously, Jinx, a little bit of a different thing, but can certainly get snowballing. We'll see how that all works out for TPA because Cloud9 have locked in their 2 final choices. Thresh for LemonNation and Orianna in the mid lane for Link.
It's amazing to think Thresh made it this far through.
Yeah.
And Orianna was actually one of Blink's first champions that he played in the LCS all the way back in Season 3, so he should be very comfortable on that. A fairly, I'd just call almost normal team comp for Cloud9. A lot of everything, or just a little bit of everything. Very versatile is actually the word I'm looking for. Versus the what is actually fairly heavy dive and not much protection coming out from TPA.
What is their final choice for the top lane here? A role which has failed to impress us, I think, so far from TPA's side of things. I think that's fair to say. It's going to be Renekton in this one, and you know, Renekton where you're going to be thinking about having that bullying early to mid game and hoping to scale well into later things. But as I said before, we've not been super impressed with performance throughout the game really from TPA on that front.
Now Achie has not performed in the games. It's really been about their solo lanes not doing well and Bebe not being good enough to carry, or just the other teams being too good to let that go and just taking the 5,000 or so gold advantage they get from the solo lanes and steamrolling through the rest of the game. TPA actually hasn't gone much different on that. Things are very reliant on the solo lanes with this team composition, so we'll see if they can improve against Cloud9.
Some big questions to be answered in this one. Cloud9, of course, a win and a loss under their belt. A close win against Fnatic. Their loss wasn't really all that close, unfortunately for them. Obviously, SKT sweeping them to the side. For TPA, this is pretty much do or die. I mean, people are already looking forward to TPA versus Fnatic later on, but those kind of things could be decided before. We're going to find out, and of course the teams are now loading onto the Rift, so why don't you guys let us know who you think are going to win this game. Send your pick to @LOL Esports and use the hashtag C9 win or TPA win.
And it's so important because we're coming into the second day of group stage here. This game really secures Cloud9 advancing out of group stage if they win. If they lose, there's a very large risk that that 1-3 record would lead them either into a 3-way tie or not making it at all.
We are in Europe, guys, I'm just saying, so ties are a very real possibility.
That's where the All-Stars are.
We're going to find out here. We are going into game. It's Cloud9 versus TPA. Who's going to get the early start? Again, I'm going to harp on about early aggression. That last game was a bit of an exception. It was just a bit of dancing and FLICKR dodging, which funnily enough turned out to be very indicative of how the game was to go on in the end. Will we see any aggression here from Cloud9 and TPA, a team that aren't scared to get dug in at level 1?
TPA had a ridiculous level 1 in their game yesterday against OMG where they came out on top. It didn't grant them a victory, but it did grant them an early advantage. The GPL was all about level 1, so if we're looking for level 1 experience, it's all on TPA's side.
And again, they must have been watching the last game. Dancing in the mid lane between Sneaky and Warning. No bombs to dodge or to catch, which is also a very real possibility when that happens. TPA have got a 3-man team down on the bottom side. From Cloud9's side, it's a little bit more spread out, let's call it. A full line defense covering all the main entries into the jungle on both sides of the map. And there is the vote. 84% of you thinking that Cloud9 are going to take down TPA, which is bigger by a considerable amount than it was with the LOLesports.com vote that we heard a little bit earlier from the analyst desk. So, TPA stacking up here by their red buff. Looks like there's not going to be much of an invade, and if so, it's going to come very, very late here from TPA.
Yeah, we might actually see that game without a level 1. I'm very surprised that it's such a one-sided vote for Cloud9. Obviously, it's probably a heavily American or Cloud9 fan base voting for this particular broadcast because knowing Cloud9 coming into the tournament without high, hopes were not high for Cloud9. And I did that completely unintentionally, Joe, I swear to God. And TPA, with the championship of the GPL actually came into this with an even stronger roster than they had during the season. The acquisition of wins from their sister team TPS was hailed as one of the best transactions that any GPL team has made in years, and it hasn't shown through so far in the All-Stars.
There's always time to shine while there's still games left to play, as LemonNation here being very aggressive onto Jay. We've always got to be very mindful of those bindings. LemonNation, of course, went for the Flay here at level 1. We saw that just a couple of seconds ago. We'll see how this all works out. Again, we see back to our old standard. Another game.
Yeah.
2 versus 2 in the bottom lane, 1v1 in the other lanes.
I'm liking it, especially at All-Star, where there's so many players that are just best in role for their region. Bebe, as far as AD carry is concerned, is just the legend from Season 2, still the last remaining member from that championship team, captain and carry for TPA, against Sneaky, who, by the way, had the best KDA in the North American LCS, really best stats overall as far as AD carries are concerned. That's going to be one hell of a matchup down bottom.
And here we see Meteos. He was the key target for TPA. There's the hook onto Jay. This is trouble. They're going to go for Bebe, though. He flashes away. Now they go towards Jay. They've not got much CC to lock him up, but they'll force the flash nonetheless. Both flashes used by TPA and the heal from Bebe.
That is a huge move right there. Cloud9 burned absolutely nothing, so they will have a huge advantage in that game now, sending them both back to base as well. Next time a hook lands, it could very well be death.
So this top lane, Balls, had a very tough game yesterday against SKT, a game that he'll probably want to just forget, to be honest with you. So far, having a bit of a hard time being bullied around, but you can see keeping up with the CS on that front nonetheless.
Yeah, Lucian actually isn't a guy who can take on Renekton crazy early on in the game. He's mainly looking at Lucian so he can be more of a late game assassin. He can teleport into fights and really jump around and punish squishies early, plus become a late game split pushing threat once he gets a whole bunch of lifesteal to outlast the tank Renekton who can't burst people down. That's the strategy of the Lucian pick there.
Oh, a hook coming through there. Nocturne had actually just showed himself. That's the first, I'm not sure if we can really call it gank from Wins. He just walked into the lane there, was spotted early enough from it, and we can see that Meteos actually replying to this one, just moving down again towards the bottom side of the map.
And an interesting choice by Wins there, going Spirit Stone. Oh, nice binding by LemonNation. That's a lot of damage.
Good combo coming in, wasn't enough in the end. There is the hook actually coming down, but they've got no follow-up here, Cloud9. We saw Meteos had already backed away on towards his Golem camp.
And to finish the point on Wins' item choices, this is the slightly nerfed Spirit Stone, where there's a name for this, the Wriggle's Lantern, Feral Flare.
There you go.
It would be the nerf Feral Flare if he would have went that route where it takes 30 stacks to transform. Pretty much everyone was building that on Nocturne. He is most likely going for a Spirit of the Elder Lizard, a much older Nocturne build that he's going to be more comfortable with, because as we said earlier, the GPL had a lot more Nocturne picks than the other regions, and that's what he would have been using when it was popular. Doesn't see the need to change over to the Feral Flare.
See that Balls has gone back. We saw him recalling a few moments ago. He's picked himself up a second Doran's Blade in there as well. Wow, that's a max range hook onto Bebe. The Black Shield came down just a little bit afterwards. The CC wouldn't have followed through anyway, but Cloud9 on LemonNation in particular, can't fault him for his hooks up until now.
One of the results, though, of Bebe going back very early in the lane is he's actually got an item edge on Sneaky. Until Sneaky shops and gets a BF sword, they actually can't capitalize on those burned summoner spells. By the time Sneaky ends up shopping, the summoner spells may be back, actually.
Very, very possible from that one. He does have a big CS lead, though, does
yeah.
39 to 23. Just watching this mid lane there, we saw a lot of damage coming through already from Link on towards Morning. If you look at the items, Link has been back, and there's actually the clone being popped. And Link, Flash, Ignite still available, same over the other side. We'll see if any more aggressive action. I can't imagine that will come out of Link. I think harassment and farming is the name of the game for him.
He's not a typically aggressive player, but at the same time, you do want him to try and take advantage of Morning a little bit. He's down about 10 CS. Getting the LeBlanc clone shows he's been getting a lot of harass on him, but that harass hasn't actually led yet to a farm advantage. Maybe once he gets a little bit more ability power after that Chalice and starts building up to the Athenes, we'll see more of that, but it's going to be tricky for Link.
Oh, Sneaky taking a lot of damage. Actually has to just dash away from the Dark Binding. That's the danger that you've got with Jinx Morgana in there. You've got the chain to really put down. Once you land that binding, you put the chompers in position. You've got a lot of time for basically free damage.
This will be the point now as well where Sneaky gets his BF sword. They went back into the double golem, so he's going to be coming back with that big item advantage. While the summoner spells will be back up for TPA, the advantage will be that BF sword. So it's not actually advantage lost, despite them not getting kills while summoners were down.
Morning is going to be gifted the first blue buff for him of this game. Wynn's just tanking that one up, and it does go over there to Morning. Meanwhile, Meteos, we know him as a player that loves to help balls in particular get going. We talked about this heavily yesterday. Spent a lot of time in that lane, didn't really get the results from it. We'll see if he goes for it here again.
Cloud9 often tries to make balls their top lane carry, and this gank is no surprise.
Low going down, Meteos coming in from the side, and he's just going to throw down a couple of extra hate spikes, but he was already back towards that turret there. It's going to mean the first recall on the TPA side of that top lane. Give balls a little bit of free time to farm.
Cloud9 loves to do repeat ganks or try and use even the harass to get up top to make plays in the jungle. They rely on strong solo lanes to make jungle plays. That's why he has the deep wards. He will do a deep ward into a gank. He wants to smite steal this red.
Oh, this could be dangerous. Here comes Meteos from the side, and there is a smite. Wins didn't even know what had hit him there.
Well, she was invisible coming in, but Meteos had the timing, and instead of waiting for it to be a smite battle, actually just used a bunch of spells with his smite, so to better secure it from Wins. Great job getting the deep ward off the gank that didn't work into a play that did.
LemonNation actually getting a ward down by the blue as well. Are they going to look to control that one next time around? Of course, it was taken a little earlier. Here we go, though. They're going to throw everything down onto LemonNation. He just wanted a ward in the enemy jungle, and what's going to happen is he gives up the first blood, and it goes on to Morning.
And that is huge. If we remember the games the TPA did win at the IM World Championships, it's when Morning went off. He was on Ziggs there, but the first blood with the Nocturne gank goes a nice way to helping him against Link in the mid lane.
Bit of a setback as well, considering how well this bottom lane had really gone for them in the previous 9 minutes of this matchup. Sneaky was far and away in the lead. Forced to recall there after there's some damage coming in, and now it's only a 10 CS difference.
And additionally, LemonNation didn't decide to go for the Relic Shield Thresh build. He's actually rushed the Sightstone, so he's going to slowly fall farther and farther behind Jay in gold, who's went for the very good gold generation item in the Frostfang now.
Meteos just refreshed his red buff, by the way, after stealing TPAs away with his smite. Went and took his own. And we'll be just recalling back to home. Want to take a look at the top lane items as well. So that's been somewhat of a quiet lane for us. Good hook landing, but onto the black shield, where it basically means very little, let's say.
No CC, but you could still actually jump to it afterwards if you wanted to.
Yeah.
So one of the weird black shield interactions you'll get with that hook.
Oh. Damage from Morning. Gets the chains off on towards Link, but again, no real massive damage to come through. Obviously, it was both players starting out towards that Athene's Unholy Grail. Chalice and the Fiendish Codex already there for Link. Just a Chalice in for Morning at this point of the game.
But he's trying to press a whole bunch harder, maybe saving up for completing it outright. There's a lot of similar item builds going on in these lanes, and it's just all about who can actually rush it properly. They go back and buy incremental, and then they trade advantages.
Oh, they're going to get baited into this one. There is Meteos from the side, and he's ultimate not really connecting, but they're going to land the Q there. It is going to be Meteos tanking up the turret. Ball gets a kill, and now they're going in with Morning and Link here. Oh, wow.
Way off right there by Link. He was hoping to get a kill. Maybe he can still get it.
I wondered why he'd come straight back into that one. Link getting a massive burst of damage back down onto him. Now LemonNation and Sneaky with that extra pressure across the map, actually stepping forward here in the bottom lane, looking for that hook. Didn't quite work out for them, but brings Cloud9 back level in kills and actually slightly ahead in goal.
Oh, the binding
here on the chompers, on the binding. That's a good playback from LemonNation. He's going to get ulted up though by Jay. The culling coming from the back here from Sneaky. Super mega death rocket. Flashed away from, don't think he was low enough anyway.
Still a nice trade of skills there. You can see that bottom lane is actually starting to even out a little bit because of that binding. But to get back to that mid lane fight, even though you miss the shockwave, the level 1 shockwave isn't actually what does the damage. It's the ball movement and the command dissonance afterwards. So when Morning came back in, he didn't necessarily take that into account, got bursted down anyway, and nearly died.
would have been a bad turn of events, really, for TPA, considering that Morning did get himself that first blood. The farm in that mid lane is very much even as well at 100 to 95. This top lane, once again, who would have thought it? Meteos coming back into the top to try and give balls even more of a lead.
Another gank. I'd almost expect Wins to spend more time up top, but they're really leaving Achie completely on his own. Meteos going to be able to get into that brush, and Nocturne's going to want to gank bottom. There's a chance these ganks could happen simultaneously if the times present themselves properly. No ultimate at the moment on Renekton. It just came back up.
Oh, bit of a face check there from Achie, and they're going to dive it. Q landing here from Ball.
All they wanted.
Ultimate use there, and maybe that's all they wanted to bait out for him. That leaves him squishy here by the time it's run out. But look at this, TPA. They see Meteos in the top lane. They say, it's Dragon time.
Yeah, they're really thinking about it. His ult was still running when they started this dive. This is real dangerous.
It is dangerous, but I think they're going to come out of it. All right, a flash was used there in the end. There is a Dragon going down, so they trade kill for Dragon here. Super Mega Death Rocket coming across the map. It could be good. It could be good. Oh, so close to balls. So very close to getting the kill.
Nice shot, I gotta say, from Bebe, but it wasn't quite enough. The extra shielding of Lee Sin right at the end there was a bit too much. That's very much Cloud9, what they just did there. Willing to consistently gank top, so eventually they force the other jungler to do the same, and that's when Meteos tries to take advantage of him. They did get the dragon, which means the gold is still incredibly close, but we have to see how Balls can deal with that advantage. Haven't seen him much on Lee Sin.
Morning actually just having a look for LemonNation there, just gets back off towards his distortion. Here's a blue buff spawning in. Link, of course, will be gifted that one. I'm interested to see whether Meteos is going to go to the enemy red, which of course he did steal on the last time around. And back to this top lane. Both players actually getting that Tiamat in. The only item difference between them, funnily enough, that single Doran's Blade.
Yeah, I mean, it's an 800 gold advantage, which can't buy too many items at this point in the game.
Morning throwing his entire combo in there, and Link's like, nah, you can't burst me down just yet, my friend. Oh, and what? Meteos again
camp
into that top lane, camping very, very hard. And Sneaky gonna step forward, actually dodging the Dark Binding. Gonna get some good damage on towards Bebe here as well. Jay, of course, a little bit tankier, can afford to take a couple of those hits. There's actually no one coming down to help. Nocturne's based here, so won't be in position to actually dive in with the paranoia if he needs to help. Meanwhile, Link again gonna be facing some pressure from Morning.
He's surviving a lot of those trades and still coming up pretty even on farm. And the bottom lane for Cloud9 has been doing spectacularly. It's really bad news for TPA if Bebe is losing that 2v2. That's one of the reasons Wins can't counter gank the top lane ganks, because he's trying to help out the bottom lane and getting sucked into other parts of the map.
Yeah, trying to bait Link in. Sadly for TPA, Meteos had already had a look there and spotted Nocturne waiting on top of that turret, and in the end Wins decides, okay, not really going to get in with a chance to do anything on this side, so I'm just going to back off. We've also seen Jinx backing away here as well. Bebe picking up that Bloodthirst. It leaves them pretty much even in terms of damage down in that bottom lane. There's just that, again, that single Doran's Blade that separates the two of them.
Oh, they definitely spotted Meteos out there. He was trying to sneak up, but I wonder if that's going to stop him. Yes, this time they're actually sending aid, but that's going to pull from other lanes. We were talking a bit about Wins earlier and how he hasn't looked great in the games, but he's actually made a lot of really great escapes. He's just constantly having to put himself in bad situations on Nocturne here, where he's got to maybe gank a Renekton who's behind, or just try and brute force a bot lane gank who is also behind. They're hard decisions to make, and while he can be great mechanically, you can't do everything if your lanes are losing straight up.
LemonNation getting a bit separated here from Sneaky. If we think back to the 2v2 matchup in the bottom lane yesterday, actually that was a result of or the start of a kill actually for SKT when they managed to separate LemonNation away from Sneaky. This time around, Sneaky down to half HP Bloodthirster, as I said before, so not going to have too much of a problem with getting himself back to a healthy position.
152 to 115. That has the potential to get a little bit out of hand late game. Luckily though, if you actually consider the overall gold of the lane, with Jay having that Frostfang, which has actually accumulated him nearly 500 gold, he's substantially ahead of LemonNation, and it could end up evening out. Just being down in CS because they're getting more gold from the support items.
Oh, flash in there, and flash away just as quickly from LemonNation. Meteos had already moved around. Hook got thrown out, but not landing really, and a bit of a catastrophe on both sides of things. The flash from Jay, LemonNation, good reactions to do that. Now they're pushing out. They must know that Meteos is here.
Yeah, well, Morning had roamed down once again. Or sorry, yeah, Morning had roamed down once again on LeBlanc, leaving the mid lane open. He still hasn't been punished very heavily on CS. I almost feel like if that binding would have landed, that might have been a counter gank for Meteos because it would have been right on top of the turret. Really, really tense game here, Joe.
Neither team wanted or really can afford to be making mistakes here. TPA in particular, of course, still chasing their first victory here at All-Stars 2014. Let's see if they can get that here today. Of course, they still have one more game to play after this, which will be our last game of the day against Fnatic. And well, that could certainly turn out to be a big deciding game.
Remember, Cloud9 still has to play OMG, who, even though they lost to SKT today, look very clearly like the second strongest team in the tournament. So this is kind of a must-win for both teams. Cloud9, because they don't necessarily want to fall into a tiebreaker game. TPA, because they want to stay in.
Hook landing again from LemonNation. Again, his accuracy with that has been pretty strong. Here comes the TP. They're all going to go towards Bebe. He flashes away. The calling will be enough. It's Meteos actually gets it in the end. Now Jay's coming around. Here is Achie as well from the backside. That's a lot of damage that he's putting out, but he's taking even more back. And this may be a double. It will be a double. Meanwhile, Link is having to go. At Morning flashes in. Get out, Wade. He's going to get the kill. Brilliant from Link.
Big cheers coming out for them right there because they killed 4 members of TPA, and the gank tries to come in from whence Can't Link escape.
He's do a lot of damage. The Fear's pretty much going to seal his fate there, and that's a good reaction back from Wind. But in the meantime, Cloud9 pushed and took the turret.
Honestly, you kind of have to question why that Nocturne ult wasn't burned during any of the big fights which they just lost. It would have been rather useful for them. Cloud9 completely beat TPA and wins to the punch, getting those kills. And now they're trying to take down this dragon before TPA can make it. But they started it a little bit late. This could lead to a team fight.
This could lead to disaster if they're not careful. There is the dragon going down. Goes over to Cloud9. Meteos forced to flash. Didn't want to risk. Jay coming in. Super Mega Death Rocket. Again, so very close. 60 HP left there. 60 HP is enough.
Bebe has been so unfortunate with those Super Mega Death Rockets, not quite finishing off twice now. That would have been huge for his overall scaling in this game because he's picked himself what needs to be a bit of a hyper carry. He doesn't have the big protection on this team with that Jinx.
Throwing it back for TPA though. That's their first one of the game. Still low scoring when we look at turrets and how the meta really is, but with that said, we have been seeing more and more of our older 2v2 standard lanes with the top laners facing off against each other, which I think Cloud9 aren't too unhappy about. They feel strong in their 2v2 and they know that Balls is always going to have basically a 2v1 lane because Meteos spends so much time there.
And when it's mattered most for Cloud9, they've actually been best at the standard laning phase games. I think back to their NALCS finals against Team Solomid, and they played all 3 games as standard as the lanes come. They've also wanted to do that in their games here at the All-Star.
Oh, LemonNation, how fast are you? Very fast, apparently. Manages to get the damage down. Morning going low here. The calling comes through. Winter's dead. Shockwave comes in. Meteos actually picking that one up. Gets the killing spree. Sneaky's taking the outer turret. Will they go for the inner? LeBlanc is so very low. There's no defense there for them.
Cloud9 is really starting to take control, fully invading the jungle right now. They have left the bottom lane slightly exposed, but it's because they took so many more advantages on the rest of the map. They are trying to take advantage now of that Ravenous Hydra Lee Sin and the pressure he can potentially create, knowing Achie can't go back to that top lane safely.
And he's in the mid, just pushing that one out there, giving that cover and making sure that there was no fast push on towards the inner tower. Bebe was thinking about recalling there. I think actually he turns around onto Sneaky. He's got a Super Mega Death Rocket. Here is Meteos though, and Sneaky just backs away. Meteos tanks up the rocket, and that's a kill for nothing. And a turret in the top lane from Balls.
I really feel like Sneaky took advantage of BB's need to carry games right there, because that was an unsafe fight to engage in for BB, even if he can win a 1v1. Sneaky knew he had Meteos in the back pocket. Classic bait, but it really preyed on the instincts of Bebe.
Oh, LemonNation, are you going to go down? That's a lot of damage from Morning. In the end, I think he spotted Meteos around the side. He's like, no, I can't really go that deep. Here is Balls, though. He's going to have 2 men coming around. That's a good binding. There's the third as Winds comes in. Can Balls get away from this one? He's feared up for what surely feels like a day. Kicks one back. Doesn't get the knock up onto Winds. Flashes away from the binding. But there's the paranoia. His life stealing like a boss. But it's not enough to keep him alive. And now Meteos 1v1 against Morning. Morning just using the distortion to get away. But that wasn't a close duel.
No, that was Meteos popping out of stealth and nearly taking down Morning. Morning has started to fall behind in this game. In fact, he's going for the Deathfire Grasp LeBlanc build, which is single target. And this near escape by Balls, it didn't seem like it was going to come. He really looked dead to rights. Dark Binding into Fear. Finally, he can start running away. The kickback just barely missed Winds, but then he still had the flash, making the ult burn. And if he would have juked this last Duskbringer by Nocturne, he very well may have escaped.
I'll give Balls his due. He was in the right direction to juke it there.
Yeah.
But he was just too close, so that point blank, a little bit easier for him to land. Here's Cloud9 again up by the Baron area, and again on the clear out mission. You see that Link doing a lot more damage than before. Needlessly large rod. I want to actually compare that build over with Morning, who's gone for that very much blow up a single target with the DFG after his Athenes.
I kind of question it right now for Morning. I know that FLICKR's favorite LeBlanc build is the death cap afterwards, and he still manages to assassinate people because LeBlanc just has a lot of single target damage by default, but the wave clear and the map pressure and the team fight of the death cap is just that much higher. He's going to maybe use the Deathfire Grasp to get rid of Lee Sin when he dives in, because honestly the tank line of Cloud9 isn't extremely tanky, they're just fairly tanky, and if they can get the Lee Sin down through the Bansheesville, maybe they could take him out. But it kind of just, to me, screams that he's behind in the game and still trying to get enough damage to kill even one person.
Feeling maybe a little bit desperate, as we saw while we're looking at Sneaky and Bebe there in that mid lane. The fight that was baited earlier on, Sneaky was at half HP, but with a Bloodthirster, a Zeal, and a Phage, and was saying, okay, I can still fight you here. This is a fight that I want to take. Meteos came in there, and that was the 4th assist, actually, for Sneaky. He's not quite been as lucky here in terms of picking up kills. That was a very close hook to landing on towards Jay. And look at that, Bebe and Sneaky having a bit of an encounter underneath the turret. Here comes the paranoia. They're going in for Link. Have they got the damage here? They will do with that DFG. Actually, it wasn't even used, so forget about that one. But they get the kill nonetheless.
And that was just Winds burning his ultimate right there to finish off Link. The question then remains, can TPA make advantage of that? Because with the Nocturne ult down, a lot of their team fight initiation would be lost. And if they don't make anything happen, I feel like Link is going to be all right with that death.
So TPA themselves, after that kill, just trying to get a bit more control back over the Baron area. As Morning coming in. He does definitely hurt, there's no doubt about that.
But imagine if that was a death cap. Sneaky would have been much closer to death off of that one and far more scared back. He didn't even use the DFG in their actual kill. So he's got to pick up his game still.
Certainly have to press those actives if you're going to go that route, that's for sure. Sneaky just backed away after taking that damage and comes back off towards the lane. Balls, as he said before, the Banshee's Veil now in their form as well, which is going to prevent either the first binding coming in, whatever the CC that could be landed from around it, part of the burst from Morning as well, which will completely break his combo. In the meantime, with Balls putting down all this pressure in the enemy jungle, they've basically just snuck straight in there and they're taking the dragon.
And I also think the death cap has been completed by Link will be something that Cloud9 uses to force more of the game here. When they play these solo lanes, they're actually pretty good at taking the game to late game, or they have been. But that's when they have a Jax in the top lane. With the Lee Sin in the top lane right here, they're actually on a bit more of a timer. They're not going to win by as much because Morning will eventually get to a point where he just kind of kills Sneaky. I want to see how Cloud9 can make decisive moves now to win the game and not just know that they're going to be better late game.
I want to mention second item finished for Bebe, picking up the Last Whisper, that's the name of it, almost forgot somehow for a second there, on top of his Bloodthirster. Other side, of course, earlier on, definitely the Trinity Force was finished by Sneaky. as his second item coming into this one. If you look at the junglers as well, very similar, in fact, almost identical build routes at this point. There's a Hart coming through. It's going to force them away from the tower. Good leash coming in now towards LemonNation. Meteos going to take a bit of burst, but it's Jay that they really want from this one. Here comes Wins diving to the back. The Colin is ripping him to pieces. Wins is super low. Balls goes in. It's Achie that's coming in from the back, though, and Sneaky's trying to run away. He's on his own, completely isolated. The rest of the team is low. Link is going down very low. Gets the kill as he dies as well. The flash on towards Morning, and that will be a 4 for 2 for Cloud9.
And that was a little bit messy. TPA always seems to be so close to winning these team fights in all of their games, and then because they've lost and made some mistakes early on, they just don't have the gold and the strength to actually win them. This gives Cloud9 the inhibitor.
Inhib going down, the first one of the game. Good push through from that one, and I want to go back to the point that you just made, that they've looked close each time. Yeah. I'll make my point in a second, because he's not fighting again.
I mean, look exactly how close this one is. LemonNation got killed, and they get a reset for Bebe, so he can fly into the fight here with all the ultimates being used. And when Renekton came in, it looked like this fight was going to be turned, but they just didn't have the straight-up strength. Bebe couldn't quite finish off balls. Link came in from a flank, got a bunch of damage on it, and then TPA just kind of ended up having to fall back. If they were a little bit stronger, if there was a Phantom Dancer actually finished onto Bebe, or a Death Cap onto Morning instead of that DFG, because just damage-wise overall for the fight, they might have been able to turn that. All the low-health people on Cloud9 ended up steaming through and getting the inhibitor.
So back to my point then, because we've seen from TPA some moments of very, very promising signs.
Moments of brilliance.
We've seen moments of brilliance from them, but they've only been moments. We've not seen consistent, time after time, top level team fights, decision making from them. And you got to feel that that's going to be costing them, or has cost them already in the games that they lost.
Yeah, inconsistency is unacceptable on a stage such as this with so many great teams around. Your mistakes will get punished. Maybe that's one of the big reasons their semifinals against TPS went to all 5 games. Their finals against HQ went to all 5 games. They are an inconsistent team that has moments of brilliance and moments of failure. Just too many moments of failure to actually win games here.
Oh, and this could be a moment of failure. Wins is not really paying attention to that one. Damage coming his way. Actually dives onto LemonNation. Renekton in the back is doing good damage, but will fall in the end. And that will be a 1-for-1 trade, but it's going to keep going. Balls in the middle of the team. Is wrecking faces. Morning goes down. 3 of TPA do manage to escape. Cloud9, though, only losing the 1. With the champions left, they're going to go Baron, surely.
Exactly. 2 main carries down for TPA. Just the support. LemonNation is absolutely fine with dying on this one if it means the Baron for his team. Everyone on TPA had to go back to base. Baron completely uncontested.
I want to go back all the way to before the start of this game, and TPA's publicly disclosed game plan.
Yeah.
Stop Meteos from doing his business. 6-0-6 Meteos.
It didn't work. They weren't able to stop him from doing his business. And let's just take one more look at this fight, because Meteos leading the charge actually uses ultimate on the back line because the front line could be dealt with by Cloud9. They kept very good range of Renekton and then could just all come in afterwards. Balls wasn't even there at the start of the fight. Lands the Q, decides to go in and really just keep TPA occupied so that they could clean up Morning. They isolate him on the side. Sneaky focuses. They still have the good in-fight play from those guys, and it ends up giving them a bear.
Yeah, Balls is definitely looking a shade better than their loss against SKT yesterday. 4-1-5, you see there, so at home with the build that he's got there with the Randuins on, with that Ravenous Hydra. And all the lifesteal you saw in the middle of the fight is tanky enough to hold them off. And he's lifestealing away anyway whilst doing good amounts of damage. So Balls definitely is, as you mentioned yesterday, the carry top laner that really Cloud9 needing to be. He seems to be getting back into that role here today.
And he's really bouncing back from the really tough game he had against SKT. He was pretty happy at the end. He did kill FLICKR and make him miss a bunch of skill shots, so he did say it was worth on social media. And speaking of social media, actually, it was made public by TPA early on in the All-Star. When they were scrimming Cloud9, they 3-0'd them in one of the scrim sets. But what was unknown to the public is the next day, Cloud9 scrimmed them and 3-0'd them back. So it just kind of goes to show you how game time and scrim time can be so much different, and the results can vary because scrims are so strange. It's very, very foolish to take scrim results at face value and say one team is better, because Cloud9 is better here.
Cloud9 going in for the inhib turret, the TP was aimed out there, and well, they killed the turret before that could actually happen, and now with the inhib in the mid lane respawning, they're just going to go straight for that one. Balls gets hit with a binding, but as I said before, he just life steals that back up instantly. They take down inhibitor number 2 there, as we see. Achie is in the top lane, tried to recall back, to teleport back in towards his base, but in the end, can't really do anything apart from shove this lane down. We should also mention in turrets here, 2 is what TPA have been able to pick up, not being able to hold with Cloud9 on that front.
And their team as a whole actually isn't that good at sieging or playing the lane game. They're trying to go in for a dragon here. That's a big mistake.
They are far too late for the dragon. Wins dives in, but he is squishy as you like. They finish him off pretty much instantly. Jay is low. Jay is dead here. It's Meteos that picks up that one. Renekton coming in from the side with his dominus running. Decides I can't even fight this one. Link's gonna go for Bebe. The shockwave gets him. And now they focus on towards Renekton, who's going down slowly but surely. And that, my friend, is going to be an ace here because Morning is trying to get away. And Ball said, no you don't. Cloud9 are going to push through here and go for the win.
They just finished this game after getting the lead. The crowd erupts. Cloud9 gets the second win.
And that is the victory that basically sets TPA up for a showdown later on in the day with Fnatic. That is, of course, if Fnatic don't beat SK Telecom T1 later, that could really turn things at the bottom of the groups a little bit more interesting. But for now, it's Cloud9 here that have got the job done. They go 2-1 in the table.
And that was just Cloud9 bouncing back very well from their defeat to SKT yesterday. It's going to be a question here on how well Cloud9 does when things go according to plan and how well they can adapt to change, because this is another game that went very according to plan to them. They got the standard lanes, which minimized the amount of movements they had to make around the map, which is their weakness without High, because they have inexperienced time together as far as never really playing with Link before this event. This game worked great though. 2 wins, that means they move on.
And we saw that Meteos, they actually, Cloud9 themselves banned out the Elise. Funnily enough, after all those games in a row where Meteos, I think it was 7 in a row, 5 from playoffs, 2 from Euro All-Stars, they banned that Elise themselves to stop Wins taking it. He himself played both games so far in All-Stars on that Elise. Then Kha'Zix was taken away and Meteos says, okay then, it's Evelyn time. And the thing is, you know, if you watch Cloud9 games, that he's going to spend a lot of time in that top lane. Problem is, when you can't see him, it makes it a lot harder to stop that from happening.
Exactly, and it's not like Wins could have just spent all the time up there, because if he did, they're fighting 2v2s against a Sin, which isn't necessarily a huge advantage. They'd be wasting time or just kind of trading up there. And it's on Sneaky and LemonNation, who are honestly probably the most underrated bottom lane in North America. Everyone talked about X Special Turtle or Double Lift After with a Rush Hour and just hailing them, yet always, at the end of the day, the top of the table, it's Sneaky and LemonNation, and they don't even get ganked for it. But they're always top of the table as far as numbers go. They're really good duo bottom. They beat up Bebe and Jay, and they're one of the big reasons that Wins could not support the top lane.
Well, a big victory here for Cloud9 over TPA. We're going to hand it over to Quick Chart and the analyst desk, though, for more post-game perspective.
Thank you very much, guys. Welcome back to the desk. I just want to say that with that victory, we do have 3 of the 5 regions already locked in for the playoffs. Korea, China, and now North America. Depending on how the last game of the day goes, Europe may not be making it to the playoffs for 2 years running at the All-Stars. Let's start a little bit with the Taipei Assassins. I do feel, Freak, you've spoken quite extensively about the individual decision-making and some of the mistakes TPA are making. I want to highlight Wins. He did not pick up a trinket until 14 minutes and 32 seconds in the game.
New meta.
Was playing Nocturne. I also want to mention that he didn't go Feral Flare on Nocturne as well. What's your take on TPA?
Yeah, so, I mean, you know, being true to Nocturne, didn't want to put down a warding trinket. He wants to keep the lights off. So that makes sense. He's being thematic, at least. But yeah, so the Nocturne pick works fine, but generally speaking, we saw that he never really tried to gank. He actually out-CS'd Meteos for what it's worth. But yeah, not going Feral Flare despite farming non-stop for like 20 minutes and not doing anything there. And then on top of that, like, even though he had more CS, like, Meteos was still getting more gold from conservation. So even with all that, even with like minions going down, like, Meteos is still doing more things in the jungle, right? Putting more pressure out there, but just by being invisible, and right, you never saw much happen.
But it just seems like Cloud9's plan of taking Lee Sin early as the first pick, making TPA think it could possibly be the jungler here, so they didn't pick up a jungler themselves, giving the Evelyn then over to Meteos. And with 4.6, the Filth Flare nerfs, he was left with Nocturne or whatever kind of jungle he would have picked up here. And it didn't work for him, because yes, he farmed a lot. With the Filth Flare, he could have been very strong. However, he bought the Elder Lizard. Nothing really came from it, even though he was so farmed. And I feel like Cloud9, in the first start of the Champ Select, just really played it so well. I think they tricked TPA as well.
Yeah, I think they really did. I want to talk about actually the kind of turning point of that game as we move into a replay here where we saw those kills come down into the bottom lane. So let's go ahead and pull that up actually, because it's quite interesting. And I think it really shows a great decision-making, instance of decision-making from Cloud9, because they were really ahead of their opponents right here. And before we start rolling this, I want to point out already that we can tell that Balls is backed off on Lee Sin up in the top lane, which sets up the teleport in the first place. And then there's also a ward in the river brush right there, so that Link can follow Morning down into the bottom lane and zone him out. So let's get this rolling right here. And right away you see the teleport coming in, which means a delayed teleport, but Meteos was already set up right there, so it makes it quite easy to get the first kill, and then turn around onto Jay. Now in the mid lane at the same time, we're watching Link and Morning duke it out, but that prevents the LeBlanc roam to pick up any kills at all after that. And indeed, the ward in the brush allowed Link to see past to get that damage down and then pick up a kill onto Morning as well. So it's just that power of the decision-making. You can see the setup and the power that exists in having the plan in place and forcing your opponent to react. So they were just really set up for that. They knew all of the possible outcomes, and then they just turned it really quickly.
Yeah, I agree with Montecristo here. Cloud9 made a plan, and they executed. If you look at TPA, I don't necessarily think their composition was really bad. I think they could have played it a lot better. Their bot lane underplayed their matchup. Top lane, Renekton should be able to hold his own. And if all the lanes hold their own, then Feral Flare Nocturne can farm up a Storm into the late game. The Morgana Jinx lane should do fine against Thresh. The Morgana Lucian lane should be fine against... No, I'm messing them up. TPA's lane, Morgana Jinx, double trap combo should beat Thresh Lucian, or should at least be going equal. And they weren't beating them. They were getting hooked. Then black shielding afterwards. They just weren't playing their matchups correct. And then Wins was completely invisible on top of that. I mean, he didn't even buy a trinket. He was on tilt. TPA just didn't have a plan.
Well, closing thoughts from Fischer?
Well, it was pretty much the story of the game. Cloud9 didn't even need the shot calling. They didn't need to rotate around the map or anything. They just outplayed TPA individually. And it was the whole thing going in here. So now, as a European for Fnatic, I actually believe Fnatic will win the game, and I hope now Eurobucks can go to the semifinal.
Well, every time you voted for them in the past, it hasn't worked out yet.
It is day 2.
Just letting you know. Anyways, guys, we are ready for the interview, so let's send it over to Sharks, who's sitting by with Link from the victorious CLG Cloud9.
Thank you very much, Quick Shot. Of course, CLG Link subbing in here for Cloud9. Congratulations on that victory. That's the second one for you guys here. Tell me about this matchup, because you went for quite a safe pick on Orianna.
Basically, we knew that they were going to pick Leblanc, and they were kind of prioritizing it really highly in the scrims we played versus them. And I was just basically picking a safe mid champion that could just farm, and that'll be really, it'll do really well in lane, and it'll do really well in team fights.
Yeah, absolutely. Did very well in team fights. The coordination most certainly seemed better than it was yesterday in that win versus Fnatic even. Has it overnight changed a lot? And do you feel like you've integrated with the team better in that day?
I think the more and more I play with this team right now, I'm just getting more and more comfortable with them. I'm just slowly understanding, especially when you're scrimming versus like the best teams in the world. Like we've been scrimming versus SKT like nonstop, and we're learning more and more every single day. And today, like yesterday, we were getting stomped, and then today we were holding up our ground. And so I think we're just getting better and better slowly.
Yeah, absolutely. You talked about scrimming SKT, and it is of course a great opportunity to get a lot of experience here at this tournament. You got to play versus FLICKR yesterday. What was that matchup like for you?
Simply put, FLICKR is basically the best mid laner I've ever lane versus, and that's playing versus every single other mid laner I've played versus. He's just really good at what he does. He basically makes you fight for the CS that you're trying to get. Like every time you want to auto attack, he's gonna just be up in your face and throwing spells at you, harassing you down. And the best part about him is that while he's doing it, he's also never missing a CS, which makes him like it's really like it's crazy how he does it. So it's fun to play versus that, and I'm learning a lot.
Yeah, I can imagine that. What I also wanted to ask you is, of course, you get to be a little bit of a spy here in Cloud9 as well. I wanted to ask you about the play of Meteos, because synergy versus jungler and mid laner is so important. He seems to be prioritizing top a lot. So how is that compared to playing with Dexter?
So Meteos and Dexter are fundamentally completely like two opposite people. Like the way Dexter plays, everyone on CLG basically calls him and tells him what to do. On the other hand, Meteos is literally like the opposite. You don't tell him what to do. He wants to make his own decisions. Like, sometimes I want him to like come gank mid, but like I remember like the talks we've had before, and it's like just let Meteos do his own thing. So it's kind of weird because like when I was on CLG, like the one thing I was trying to improve on was calling my jungler, and now like I don't have to call him at all. So I'm just kind of like letting him do his own thing top and bottom, and you know it's working out well. So.
A strong, independent man, Meteos. Thank you very much and congratulations, Link. Now we're going to head back over to Captain Quickshot and crew at the analyst desk.
Aye, aye, matey. Thank you very much, Shocks. Before we get to the Twitter question that we have been asking and getting replies from you all day, I have a very quick question for Monte Cristo. We heard Link saying that he's getting in deep with Cloud9, learning their strategies. Shocks called him a spy. Have you got your questions for him when he returns to the CLG
Of course, he's going to be thoroughly debriefed once he gets back. You know, it is really valuable to have these players have your players have different experiences on different teams, especially when you know they're coming back, because you can really sift through what works on that team and what doesn't. So sure, yeah.
He is coming back, right?
I guess. I hope so. He's a great player.
Yeah, we'll find out soon enough. I'm sure Summer Split is just around the corner. Anyways, let's check what you guys have been saying on our Twitter question of the day. Earlier in the broadcast, we asked you, which player impressed you the most on day one and why? Here's the responses that we've selected. Keep them rolling in as the day goes on. First of all, hello to a fellow shoutcaster at Unheard Wolfcry. He says, Going has been absolutely in everyone's face for OMG, and he'll be a force to be reckoned with. A dangerous beast. What do you think, Freak?
Yeah, Going is an exceptional top laner. He's an aggressive player, right? You've heard some of the stats during the stream overall. He's got ludicrous win rates on the aggressive lane bullies, and unfortunately, you heard Impact say like he felt like the guy played a bit nervous, and that he's kind of expecting more from him. And OMG, they're a lock for the playoffs. We're going to see them tomorrow as well. I think they're going to continue to be impressive.
Well, we'll see how they do. Next one comes from @lol Yamazua. What's up, buddy? I was impressed with Bengi. He says, to play this aggressive and still not die, is that man even mortal? What do you think, Crepo?
Yeah, he is. He had his bad games, but he's definitely playing better than he was doing before this event. And you could really see that, like, people were saying his micro level play was a little bit off, you know, just his mechanics, but we had him go toe-to-toe with other people and just come out on top in these 2v2 trades. Then his game reads were really good. He counter-ganked earlier today, turned that top lane around and just made Impact a complete beast. So he's reading the game properly. His vision control is really good. He even went for the Ruby Sidestone relatively early, I believe, just to completely go for complete vision dominance. And it's been working out.
Sounds like you've got a crush there, Crepo. Next one comes from @JBoo. I have to go with all... that, of course, being Alan with his Thresh. 100% kill participation is just godly. He carried the carry and got them fed. DeFisher, as a fellow support, ex-support, what do you think?
I have to agree. I mean, Alan, he's the playmaker when it comes to starting the fights and getting your carries fed here for OMG, and he showed it yesterday. Today on Nami, his laning phase was very solid, but when it came down to the team fights, it didn't work out for OMG. They used the Nami a little bit too aggressive, in my opinion. But it's how it is when you're used to having this guy always duty engages. He normally plays Annealy or one of these things. If he can get his hands on them next time to play SKT, I think we could see a different match.
Well, we'll see if he does go for those aggressive champions. Last one comes from @Stella06. He says, Piglet is the true meaning of fear. He like a matrix dodges every single skill shot. He is the one. What do you think, Monty?
I think Piglet is the true meaning of fear is only a sentence you will hear in esports. But yeah, definitely. And it's worth noting that in spite of SK Telecom's slump, if there's one person who's really just kept performing, kept chugging along, it's been Piglet. Even in their losses, he's had insane KDAs and has pretty much been the reason that they've been sticking in to a lot of these games for as long as they have. So couldn't agree more.
Well, we'll keep our eyes on him as the tournament rolls on. Remember, guys, to keep sending your thoughts to us at LOL Esports using that hashtag All-Star. We do have to take a very quick break, but when we respawn, we'll get right into our next matchup. It is Fnatic versus SKT T1K. We'll be right back.
Let's go.
teleport. Oh, I'm teleporting.
Yeah, TP.
I'm on board.
I'm on Nocturne.
I'm on the block.
Careful, I'm peeling Renekton.
I'm on the back line.
Yo, Renekton.
Kill LeBlanc.
LeBlanc.
Finish phase.
Got him.
Nice.
It's
only more. You can push. You guys have taken a...
Yeah, go for an hit. Good job.